if we happen to be the person who is giving the advice to a husband and wife or to a couple of other people, because we're not in it. But when we're the ones in it, we don't necessarily like it. Even sometimes when the church has a team concept and they come together on the conflict, even sometimes that's difficult. I know Pastor Greg and I were talking about that earlier, how that's helped. And it certainly does, because not all the weight's on you. But in many instances, you're the only one trying to take care of it. And so there are those people who try to avoid it. They withdraw, they postpone, they wait for a better time. And let me just simply be honest and simple and say there is no better time than the present. You have to handle it. All right? Here's the last one. The last one is accommodating. It simply means that you're unassertive and cooperative. Now, to some, they may go, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, it could be, but the problem is that you're trying to satisfy somebody else at the expense of your own. But wait a minute, you're the pastor, okay? So you can't do that. And killing them with kindness is not going to help. When you take on the accommodating mode, there is this sense of obeying other people's opinions, orders, or thoughts, when at the end of the day, you don't agree with them at all. And yet you are yielding to their view to stop the turmoil. So that means you lose, they win. And I got to tell you this, I do not believe that is a win-win for anybody. That's not going to help you out. I don't think that's going to help you out at all. I put in your handout a summary statement from Bob Bickford. Bob Bickford is a friend to Ohio. He is a church replanter out in the Kansas area. I think Mark knows him. He wrote this summary statement about conflict, and I gave you the whole thing, but I want to read it so that you can hear his heart and understand where he's coming from. Okay? He says, conflict handled in the right way can produce a strong and healthy church. Conflict consistently handled in the wrong way produces a weak and unhealthy church. Pastors and leaders can grow in their ability to handle conflict in a Christ-honoring and healthy way. Growth or the lack of growth creates conflict for leaders in the church. Now, I want to stop there for a second. Do you agree with that statement? That growth or the lack of growth creates conflict for the leader or leaders and the church. Now, I'm going to say yes to that, okay? Now, some probably would say no, but the fact of the matter is, I was telling Brother Greg, the first church that I pastored, we started with 35 when they voted me in, okay? 99%. I think that's the best vote I've ever gotten. 99%, all right? With 35 people, within 3 years we were running 180. Do you think I had a little conflict? It wasn't bad conflict, but I had deacons looking at me going, what do we do with all these people? You know, how do we handle? And so there were things that had to be resolved that you would consider in the area of conflict. All right? Wasn't necessarily bad, wasn't necessarily good. It was just something we had to deal with. But here's the one thing that I have realized, that when there is a lack of growth, there's a lot of conflict that takes place. When people are not coming through the doors, when Christ is not the center of our attention, when people are not being baptized, when ministries are not growing, people become siloed in their ministry and in their thought, and they think what they have is the best thing on the market, and so they become They no longer become stewards of what they have been given. They have become owners. And that's never a good thing. All right, done chasing that rabbit. But I just wanted you to think about that for a second. Let's go on. Bob goes on to say, he says, conflict is not the end of the story, but the beginning place of God's work where the power of the gospel can be displayed. God uses conflict to bring us to the end of ourselves and brings us together. This only occurs if we will cooperate with Him by surrendering our pride, our fear, and our agendas as we experience conflict in the church. Strong, vibrant churches experience conflict regularly. They also resolve them quickly, loving and graciously. I would absolutely agree with that. That those churches that have everything blowing and going, that they are on top of things, they understand and know that conflict will arise. But they also have either a systematic way or a process to resolve it quickly as well and not to allow it to linger. So handling conflict in a way that is both assertive, again, not aggressive, and cooperative will help your church be or move forward in mission when you learn your conflict style, your strengths, and hear me, limitations. Your strengths and your limitations. You will be better equipped to respond and then lead your church. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do for the next few minutes. I want you to take, I know this says 10 to 15 minutes, it's probably not going to take you that long to do that, but here's what I want you to do. For the next few minutes, I want you on page, or on the things that you've already written down, I want you to discover your style or your predisposition on how you right now handle conflict in the church. All right? And then on page 3, there are some discussion questions. I only want you to answer question 1 because that's going to be where you place your answer. So after you look at those 5 dispositions that Dr. Kilman presented, I want you to honestly, within yourself, say, this is me. Okay? So I'm going to give you just a minute to do that. Okay, we good? All right, so here's what I want you to do. And Brother Greg, you may need to move on this. I want to take just a second, and I want to have you, if you're comfortable with the person or persons at your table, share your answer and why. Okay? There's no judgment here. Just bottom line is, this is who I am, this is where I am right now, and this is the way that God has wired me, right or wrong. I'm not saying that God wired you wrong, all right? What I'm saying is that sometimes, let me just give you a personal experience. There have been those times where I have led the business meeting, and every time that somebody spoke, it felt like a personal attack. And being the moderator of the business meeting, I felt like I wanted to attack back. And so my tongue got extremely sore because I kept biting my tongue, because there were some things that I really wanted to say that I knew that I was probably better off not saying, okay? And so I had to start praying for myself. I had to learn who I was and try to understand that that may not necessarily be who I ought to be. I can't allow the flesh to take over in instances like this. Because really, at the end of the day, for me, it really wasn't a personal attack. They either just didn't have enough information, it wasn't communicated well, or they felt like ministry dollars could be used somewhere else. Those kinds of things. All right, so anyway, that gives you kind of sort of an idea, all right? This is where you are right now. So take just a couple of minutes to do that with your table partner, okay?